quickly bring up some useful stuff on my screen.
So we're good to go then?
I was really... give me just a minute. I'm reorganizing things so I can actually play with them without going absolutely out of what's left of my mind. And then believe me, there's not much of it left. Okay. So creating a new set of tabs so I can work this properly. And see, this will be going over here as well. Remember that my connection is the, and my modem, my processor is. Okay, trying to bring the copy back up over here, this, and I want to go to, where are you? Playable ships, page 9 over here, not 17. Okay, almost. Precious doesn't want to show it, it doesn't know. Schmeagle's not happy with Precious.
Oh, I did some research and I remember where that voice that you're doing reminds me. It reminds me of that goblin thingy from the Rings movie stuff.
Holy crap, you want to try that again?
What?
Try that sentence again.
That voice reminds me of the...
Gollum from Lord of the Rings, Precious wants to say.
Oh, okay.
Didn't get it right, Precious didn't. So no wiggly fishes for Precious.
Crazy cat is crazy.
Yeah, okay. So basically we'll be going through this chunk of the document. I'll pull up a couple of quick bits as we go, so we can give examples of what that ship might be. Let's see if I can get to the actual table of the things I want. Give me the table, Picard.
Would he have been born yet?
Picard? At what point?
The time frame that our vessel will be in.
Don't know. Probably not. The time difference between TNG and STO, between TOS and TNG is about 75 years.
Grandfather, then?
His father, certainly. Where are the damn things? Ah, here we go. Show me the list. Good, Precious. Okay. All right, I think we're good to go.
That's the best intro we've ever had.
What was?
Welcome to the Caitian Productions Extra, the non-podcast stuff. Today we have Ramik here, and he's going to walk us through building a starship.
Starships? What are starships, Precious? Precious doesn't know what starships are. Okay.
Interstellar spacefaring vessels.
All right, to cut the joke. All right, we're actually going to be using a discontinued file system. The stuff we're using is fan-made stuff based on the last Unicorn role-playing game, which was designed for the next generation, but they later would have stuff for, don't do that, it drives my eyes crazy,
Sorry.
the DS9 expansion, which I had briefly. I can't remember the company off the top of my head that took over after Last Unicorn, but both game systems were awkward. The major advantage to them is that they did not give humans as the baseline species. They gave every species had advantages and disadvantages. But Space Dock was created as a way to go and expand on the incredibly primitive spaceship design and use in the game. The core document is 198 pages long. It was made in 1993 from the last copy I've seen, so it's a bit old, but it'll still do the job for what we need to do. First video, or this qualifies as a video, we're going to go and look at the starship classification system. What we're going to do is do the steps you'd take to design your own starship using the system. The first thing you always want to do is figure out, well, what sort of ship do you want? And what sort of ship do you want?
So are these them here?
No, like you want to have an idea. Like the first paragraph or two, basically they're designed according to a role, and then secondary roles sometimes. That can determine size, shape, certainly what sort of systems it has on it. I mean, for example, you're not going to have an escort class ship that doesn't have a lot of weapons, or a science ship that doesn't have any labs, or a medical frigate that doesn't have a med bay or transporters.
There are no destroyers here.
They actually have those under escort. Escorts effectively are destroyers. That gets into one of the things which the time is relevant. Remember, this was made in about 1993. Destroyers were not a class because, and this has been debated a lot of places, Starfleet is not a military organization. They're a paramilitary organization. So if you look at the ship types in broad categories, we have explorers, cruisers, frigates, escorts, scouts, specialized, and then support auxiliary. To give you an idea, the Purloin, the ship that Remick supposedly normally is always flying, is designed as a transport. So it would have the classification code TT. A ship like the Enterprise NCC 1701 Null is a cruiser. So it would have the classification probably either CA, or it might have CL or CH. It's not sure if it's a light or a heavy cruiser. So we'll just say it's a CA. For example, though, if we were to look at Beverly Crusher's ship in Best of Both Worlds, it was a medical vessel. So it's under specialized and would have the classification code MD.
Isn't that all good things?
What did I say?
Best of both worlds.
Yeah, sorry, all good things. Anyway, so there are sub-classifications. Heavy, light, fast. Now, a lot of this stuff is pulled directly from existing real-world ship design. So, for example, when you talk about a battleship, and we're going back to World War II era, I know, a light battleship would be called a battle cruiser, usually. It's sort of a cruiser, sort of a battleship, or a pocket battleship, it might be called. In cruisers specifically, you had light cruisers and heavy cruisers, which would be the smaller, faster variety and the more heavily armed variety. Fast as a classification is pretty much the same thing as light, but it's more of the vibe you get off of destroyer. It's designed to be fast and maneuverable. And yes, a lot of this stuff you can actually read right off of his screen, for the moment anyway. All right, pages down if you would.
So this is about the actual ships then?
Well, this is descriptions of the different classifications. Whoa, what the hell did you just do?
I made it bigger.
Okay. Yeah, and the text just got smaller, and hello. Okay, as you can tell, we're experiencing technical difficulties.
Is that better?
That'll work. Okay, so basically with STO, with Star Trek, what we would call a battle cruiser or a battleship, they're calling an explorer, the largest, the most powerful, and the most versatile of ships. Battleships in the real world, of course, were big, nasty things you did not get close to, because if you got close to, you were already at the bottom of the ocean, probably. Of course, because we're not talking about a military organization, they use the term explorer. And they actually give you examples. The Andromeda class, which I'm pretty sure is the Enterprise C. the Galaxy class, Enterprise D. The Sovereign, of course, Enterprise
E.
I was about to say F, but that's wrong. Enterprise E.
So what would the Odyssey be classified as?
The Odyssey? That's a good question. Remind me, which one is the Odyssey? Because I'm blanking all of a sudden.
The Enterprise F.
It would probably still fall under Explorer class, but I don't know enough about it to really be sure. Just as long as you don't talk about the Enterprise J, at which point I will have to go and hurl projectile vomit around. Anyway, what we actually
class,
would refer to them. Sorry?
The Celestial class, I think they called it.
It's time
Universe
ship
class or something.
Anyway, now explorers are basically the equivalent of heavy cruisers in a sense. That's why I refer to them as battleships. Cruisers are the classification that they use in STO. In Star Trek Online, the three real classifications are escorts, which are destroyers, and frigates. Cruisers, which are cruisers and explorers, and science ships, which is pretty much a hodgepodge of everything else. In a more realistic system, we have explorers, battleships, cruisers, scroll down a little bit if you would. Then we have smaller classifications, and I'm actually going to bring this up in my screen so I can do this as well and not have to wait on the scrollness. Keep going. This is still stuff about cruisers. Then you get frigates. Frigates are similar to our frigates. They're a small type of ship. The Miranda is classified in STO as a light frigate in some cases, and other times they call it a light cruiser. Frigates are medium-sized ships. They're not destroyers, which in STO they're more escorts. They're short-range, powerful vessels. Frigates basically were just kind of a stopgap type of ship. And they do go and put some weird things in here. The Chimera, for example, which in STO is a pretty nasty escort vessel.
Heavy destroyer.
Yep. Then we get to escorts. Now, with escorts, there's not a huge correlation to real-world stuff. Escorts in STO are pretty much the only ones that come out in cannons. They're the heavy hitters that are just going to smack you in the face and then run away until they can heal up and then come back and hit you again. In the real world, we don't have that kind of ship, really. But they would be semi-analogous to destroyers. Or technically, to coastal vessels. So short-range patrol vessels, that's main objective is to go and escort convoys and transports. They're not very comfortable. They pack a lot of punch, but they're kind of glass cannons. The next classification we have to look at would be scouts, and those are pretty obvious. You will note that they don't really, you'll note that they really don't have anything in terms of carriers, which is a holdover to the fact that this was all taking place in, let me actually check the copyright. Okay, first release of this was in 2000, which is weird because I could swear it was 99. But yeah, so this was made 16 years ago. They didn't really have the carrier mentality shown in any Star Trek at that point. So carrier ships, while they are possible to be designed here, are not really that common. Okay, but now we're looking at scouts. Like in this case, the game puts it the Rigel class and the Orion class. And scouts are really not shown up in STO. They're small, long range usually. If we were going to say any of the ships in STO had to be considered a scout, I would probably put it at the Intrepid or the long-range exploratory vessels.
I would put it at the Oberth and the Nova.
Well, kinda. The Oberth is a very light science ship, which was originally just a science ship. Um, but we could sort of class it here. It gets, like I said, it gets really funny with how they're doing it. Next classification they list, of course, are fighters, which is interesting they bothered to put that in there because they kind of didn't exist when this game was being put together. Well,
And
actually,
with
they
no
did.
carriers.
Well, remember that most Starfleet fighter craft are warp capable, and we can bring up a
Ah,
sheet later to show that. Past there, we end up with sort of our, well, catch-all category: specialized auxiliary support vessels, transports, which are basically troop transport ships, couriers and surveyors, which are going to be a courier is, of course, a courier. It's mainly a high-speed vessel for diplomatic use. If we were going to be real pains in the butts, the ship that Ambassador Spock uses in J.J. Abrams' remakes would probably be classed under courier, even though it serves a more specialized role. Surveyors are, well, a type of scout in a sense. And here,
wouldn't
actually, they do go include the Oberth.
wouldn't the captain's yacht also be considered a courier?
Yes and no. In a sense, the captain's yacht is an auxiliary vessel to an existing ship, as opposed to a ship in and of itself.
Hmm.
I know that's a little weird of a classification, but you actually would purchase that in a sense as a portion of the mothership. And they do list Oberth as a surveyor class here, by the way. Research and laboratory and medical vessels, well, that's kind of obvious. If your entire point is to be a laboratory in space, and here they go and mention the Nova, you're probably one of those. This is also where All Good Things Beverly Crusher's vessel would fit.
Yeah, the Olympic class.
Yep, they actually mention that in the second paragraph of Research Laboratory and Medical Vessels.
Yeah, I'm highlighting them as I go.
Excellent. Next classification is one that we first were introduced to in DS9, the Runabout, which is a weird type of ship. It's smaller than a, quote, capital ship, but it's larger than a shuttlecraft. In a sense, this is the ugly stepchild of the two of them. And then you come into your real catch-alls. You get your cargo carriers, your tenders, your transports, and your tugs. For tugs, for example, the only one that they ever really mentioned would be the Ptolemy class, which was originally designed in Star Trek original series era, never shown anywhere except in some of the literature. It never showed up in the show. Tugs and tenders and all that stuff are basically just designed to move stuff around. Tenders are basically there to just, kind of like tend to the ship. I'll refill your tanks and all that. Now that's Starfleet's classifications. Then we go on to the Allied and Threat Species classification, and that's where things start breaking down really quickly. Now remember I said explorers were equivalent to battleships? Well, here's battleships, which would include things like the, I'm going to pronounce this all kinds of wrong, Didrixta. Deridrix
The
class.
Deredex.
Thank you. And of course the Negvar, which
No, it's Klingon. You need to shout it. Negva!
Yes, well, I have other people in rooms nearby. So, and then they also kind of classify the USS Defiant as one of those.
Yeah, that's
and if we're real assholes, would that be before or after it was the San Paulo? Anyway, more or less the idea here is that a battleship is a battleship is a battleship, where I would have classed the Defiant as an escort. So the classifications can get funny.
They mention the Sovereign here.
Yeah, they actually specifically say there Starfleet has no battleships. The Sovereign class Heavy Explorer, if stripped of many exploration-oriented systems and upgraded with additional weapons, would qualify as a battleship. That's why I tend to go and class the Explorers as sort of light battleships, because that's effectively what they are, but made a bit more of a jack of all trades.
So they could be, they just don't have the gear on them.
Right, and that's why they're listing the Defiant as a battleship, because in all honesty, the Defiant is nothing but a weapons platform.
A very powerful, small one,
Yep,
which
and
I'm
that's
sure
all it is.
many Star Trek Online players dread seeing occasionally.
You mean before it cloaks?
After. But then it does have a battle cloak now, doesn't it?
I don't remember. I have the San Paulo class sitting somewhere.
If you
Anyway,
get all three Defiants and put all the three things you get from them together, it gets a battle cloak.
I'll need to look at that because I
As
have
well
the.
as the new Sovereign with the attack wing. If you get all the Sovereign parts put together, the Sovereign gets a battle cloak now.
Oh, Jesus, Mary and Joseph. Just because it needs to be said, we will not be discussing the Pegasus. So then you end up with warships and battle cruisers. This is, well, the closest thing to a battle cruiser is the medium to heavy exploratory vessels with Starfleet, and they specifically mentioned the Galaxy class. Warships and battle cruisers are light versions of battleships in a sense. They're equivalent to what in modern warfare we would call a cruiser. It's designed to take out smaller ships. It's pretty robust, but it's not going to handle itself against a battleship by and large. And of course, you do have the equivalent as a battle cruiser is a heavy cruiser, is a whatever. Below that are destroyers. Now, destroyers are here. We're getting into weirdness. Smaller than a cruiser, larger than a frigate. I would have classed destroyers as frigates in this case in the system just to make life interesting. But destroyers are the equivalent of escort vessels in a very real sense. They're basically there to be a massed attack system before you hit fast attack ships, which are the swarm of death, which are
AKA bug
basically
ships.
go ahead.
AKA bug ships.
Yep, or technically the Danube if you rigged it right.
That I don't know the name of. What's a Danube?
That's the runabout.
Oh, you mean the Dublin?
Danube is the is the class. Danube.
Okay. It's just a runabout with an extra torpedo casing.
Well, yeah, but they actually had one point where they designed one that actually had, I think it was 3 mini torpedo launchers. They're actually semi-modular designs. Anyway, so now you have a very, very basic idea of what sort of classes there are. So, well, what do you want to build? And what they were stressing here is that your ship is a character. Because remember, this is designed for a role-playing game. The ship isn't just a location. It's a character. So, for example, when I went and designed the Purloin, I said, well, okay, I want a freighter that I'm modifying the living daylights out of. Well, what do I want it to do? Well, I want it to be able to be a repair and rescue vessel. Okay, well, that makes it a support auxiliary class. Okay, great. How big is it? Figure that out later. Well, what should it feel like? Well, it should feel like it's a rundown piece of garbage, but it still gets the job done. So you start coming up with what is your ship supposed to look and feel like, and that will guide you into what you're going to create. Now, if you want to create the Bismarck or the Yamato in space, you can do that. If you want to create something that's a little more balanced, you can do that too. Now, there are ways to go and loophole the hell out of the rules in here. I've jokingly said, and according to the rules I could actually do it, the Purloin actually has 8 warp cores. Yes, 8.
Yeah, go play a Foundry mission done by Nizen 45 called Brothers Bidding. You will actually encounter the Purloin.
Yeah, unfortunately, because the way the Foundry works, you can't actually have it be as powerful as it was supposed to be. More or less, the idea with the Purloin is that that sucker could basically provide command and control, power, and everything else needed to run as much as 2 Galaxy-class ships at a time. So the idea being it could link with umbilicals to 2 derelict Galaxy or equivalent vessels and more or less take over the power and communications and control systems for those vessels and run them off of its own computer cores.
So you've mentioned that you've been wanting to put a roleplay together in the fleet.
Yep.
In the TOS era, because of K13.
Not necessarily, but certainly something I've been considering. The actual idea had been to go and say, well, we're going to have a old K class base, and I referenced some stuff in the culture document that I put together. It's not that this is a TOS era, it's that this is in STO's era, which is what, 2410 or 2411 we're now?
Last date reading we've had is, that I remember anyway, is 2410.
Okay. Basically, the idea is we're taking a bunch of almost completely graduated cadets and saying, would you like some specialized training? And being Starfleet cadets, they're probably going to go, yes, sir, 2 bags full. At which point, we're hopping them out to a more or less lost station. Basically, a K-class station near the galactic rim, or galactic barrier. It's derelict. They're going to have to go and get it running again. And ideally, working with civilians, colonize the area, or at the very least, resupply and re-personnel the station. Sort of a recovery from war situation, without being shot at.
So, reminds me of DS9, actually.
In a very real sense, yes. Though, because of the way I was designing it, contact with the Federation will be minimal, and almost every ship that goes out there is going to be mothballed. The idea is to have this place be almost completely independent.
So what?
There's also probably not very many friendly species nearby.
So what's going to be their primary starship then?
I haven't decided yet. One of the ideas had been that the only, quote, major contact they have with the Federation is trade ships. So the Purloin would make its runs, and they might have a couple of Miranda or light class vessels around just for system defense and exploring and so on. The very real idea was that all of the ships would be older ones that had been mothballed, brought out for the Dominion War, brought out for any other wars since, and now are more or less being given to civilians, stripped down a little bit. So, for example, a Miranda-class vessel normally mounts Mark 7 phasers, I believe. So they stripped those out and put in some Mark 3s for civilians.
What about a Constellation?
Constellation, I would have to go and bring that up, but...
the Stargazer.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. The problem you run into is that they had some power gap issues. Mark 7s were about the top of the line for TOS era. And technically the Stargazer was more or less TOS era. They might have been Mark 8s. The Galaxy class Mark 10 is what they mount. I think you get into Mark 12 on the Galaxy Dreadnought that we see in All Good Things. But yeah, it can be a little bit weird.
Very interesting.
Hell, it's not. I'm babbling.
Babbling?
But
Journey to Babel?
Babbling. No, not Journey to Babel. The Babel fish. Wrong universe. Anyway, so the idea basically has been to encourage civilian and Starfleet cooperation, because that's something that always seems to be lacking in a lot of the groups that I run across in the game. Because without the civilians, what good is Starfleet?
Yeah, there is actually a mission. It's one of the original patrols where you go and you talk to the miners and then prove to the mining person that you're caring about them.
I don't recall. It's been so long.
It's near Earth. It's in that sector.
I'll just nod my head and say yes. But that's the sort of idea. It's basically to make a colony, make it as self-sufficient as possible, and then to begin with exports. And maybe it's dilithium, maybe it's some mineral that they can only find there. The Basically, I just wanted to set it up and then let things develop as much as the players wanted to, and as much as I felt like interjecting. I prefer to go and give them a world, a sandbox, and say, here's the sandbox, here are some blocks, have fun. Though the backlash because I wanted to put some restrictions on it was fun. Like the person that wanted to go and be piloting an Iconian vessel. It's like, no.
Fascinating.
You're not Spock, little boy. If you were, you'd be Greenblood Hobgoblin.
What?
That's a bad attempt at Scotty. But one of the first things that McCoy calls Spock, if I recall, is a green-blooded hobgoblin.
Fascinating?
Yikes. Anyway, so I've babbled for a while. Now you talk for a minute while my voice recovers.
Okay. So if you're gonna do that little roleplay thing, and we do plan, well, I assume you're planning on having like a ship that stays on station at least. Would it be another TOS style ship going with the K17, the K13?
Technically, I'm just saying it's K class, so I don't use the number that's already there. And I think I actually assigned it K48 in this culture document.
I mean, will
I
they
haven't
have a
decided
ship
that
on
yet.
station?
They will have a ship on station. It will not be a battle ship of any sort. It will be an explorer or a cruiser. I haven't decided yet. The idea is basically going to be, if this was done properly, they would have disassembled their ships. Not like Cortez burning his ships, but they would have used those as a lot of the raw materials to build the colony. And that might actually be what happens. Look at Nimbus 3. Terra Nova in the Enterprise series. Their ships became their habitats. They basically
Yeah,
landed the damn things and disassembled them.
that's what they say happened in Stellaris as well. A game that I play, it apparently the ship lands and then they use it as a temporary base and power source until they can get the main city up.
And that's a very logical way to do things. And that's one of the things I was more or less going for here, is that they might have specially modified ships, and atmospheric capability and planet land capability are both options for hulls in this document. So they would have modified their ships to be able to land them on the planet and basically turn it from a starship into a small city. Yeah, for example, picture your Miranda class. You landed on the planet. Okay, we're going to now dismount all of the warp coils. We don't need to generate a warp field anymore. And we have a small, heavily protected city
Well,
that we can modify.
if you were stranded on an unknown planet with no hope of rescue, what class of starship would you prefer to be stranded in?
Well, first off, if I'm on the planet, I'd prefer to be in a ship that actually could land, which is not many of them. The only starship we've actually ever seen land is the Voyager class, and I have so many reservations about that because the thing did not look like it could possibly stick up like that and not fall forward onto its nose.
They have artificial gravity, they can do anything.
Yeah, but you got to go and have a massive power requirement to go and counter gravity,
Well, they're not
or
using
you'd
the
have
warp drive, are they?
Yeah, but don't you kind of want to save your deuterium?
Ah.
If you're stranded, you want to go and preserve your power supply. But anyway, if
Couldn't the
I
Connie
was
land?
sorry,
Couldn't the Connie land?
technically the Constitution class and the Galaxy class were capable of emergency landings. The Connie, the shown in J.B. Abrams, was not designed to land, and
Oh, it's more
honestly,
meaning the TOS one.
I don't think it ever did. The biggest problem you run into is that those space frames can't handle it.
Hmm.
I mean, unless you're pumping insane power to structural integrity or to gravity nullification or internal dampers and stuff, you can't do it. These are long, thin metal struts that are holding up these massive nacelles.
I always thought the Defiant could land.
You know what? I think it actually did at one point.
Really?
I'm not positive, but I think it could. I think it did. It might have been in the middle of the Dominion Wars series. I could have a vague recollection of it landing, but
Controlled landing or crash?
I think it was controlled,
Okay.
which is not exactly what Troy did with the saucer section.
A controlled crash.
Which actually, yeah, they actually had entire sections in the Star Trek Technical Manual for how to do that.
Yeah, I think I've got somewhere a book that tells us all about the galaxy and all that.
That would be the Enterprise D Technical Manual. I have a digital copy here. I sent my real copy up to Gwen Har
No, I
some years
didn't
ago.
know it had aquatic officers.
Yeah, that was kind of surprising to me too.
Assist with navigation.
Yeah, that's kind of bullshit probably, but hey.
And additionally, apparently they assisted with away team missions on aquatic planets. I'm just imagining a dolphin in a Starfleet uniform. But
I'm trying not to. Actually, like what the hell we were talking about. What you scroll down to is actually some of the rules for designing the ship. Now, what you're seeing on the screen right now is SU cost. SU is structural units. You get a certain number of structural units based on the size of the ship. The larger the ship, of course, the more structural units you get. Pardon. That was not pleasant.
I was just
If you
reading
scroll,
about a ship having a blade of armor.
yes, that is an option. It is not an option in the original series. The first ship that actually seemed to have it was the Defiant. If we were to look at the original series stuff, we would actually see that there is a hull type, neutronium. That would be the Doomsday Machine.
Hmm.
But anyway, so the mass of the ship is more or less irrelevant. They put the number in, but it doesn't really mean anything for game terms. You pick a size, or you pick a dimension, and then that tells you your size. For example, the sizes go from 1 to 16. And let's say I pick, I want to make a size 8 vessel. I think that's what I made the Purloin. Now, I don't have to conform to these dimensions. If I go up or down a little bit, fine. These are rough guidelines. That means that an overall length should be between 600 and 700 meters. The overall beam should be between 400 and 550 meters. The height should be between 1 and 200 meters. And the structural units I get is between 2,000 and 3,250. Yes, that's a big range. Yes, there's overlap with other sizes. But let's say that my ship fits size 8 for the length, size 9 for the beam, and size 6 for the height. At that point, I can average them and say, I have a size 8 vessel. And that's just the number I use. The size becomes relevant for a lot of things, like how much structural integrity you need, how many structural units your hull takes up, all sorts of things like that.
So how big of a ship could we build in TOS era?
I think it was capped at 8. Let me see if I can pull that back up.
I'm assuming that would be the Dreadnought.
Don't remember. Give me a second. Scrolling. Keep the scrolling moving. Rawhide. Let's see.
You like scrolling, don't you? The mumbling of Remick.
The size restriction table for Starfleet ships is, pick an era, 2064, 2162, 2215, 2231, 2245, 2284.
What?
Yeah, exactly. At its construction, the Constitution class in 2245 was the biggest ship they could make. The Excelsior in 2284 was the biggest they could make. The biggest one they list was the Excelsior at size 7.
So where did the Dreadnought come in?
What Dreadnought?
TOS, the Federation class.
Federation class was never actually in the show.
Yes, it was.
Based on
it is officially canonized. In Wrath of Khan, you can see a diagram of it on the bridge in the background.
Oh yeah, one of the decagrams.
So it is officially canon.
Never, so I said show. I say show. It was never in the shows. However, it was basically a Connie with an extra nacelle. Probably would have come under size class 7.
It was bigger though. It had same saucer, but its hull was different. Had a shuttle bay on the front.
It did, I believe. You're right. It's been a while since I looked at the diagrams for that. But it probably, again, would fall under size 7. Yeah, I don't have a listing for it, so no big surprise there. I do, however, have a listing for DY500 class, and what was that?
No clue.
Well, you just mentioned who was on it.
Did I?
Yes. Oh, and actually, here's an entry on Federation class. So while you try and think of what you just said, I'll look that up.
I don't know.
Khan!
Oh.
The DY500 was the
Botany Bay?
Sleeper ship. Let's see. Large anniversary. Iron after the Constitution class, but larger. Include third warp nacelle, mounted above the door sleeper. Designer and engineer's theories about warp field formation did not carry well into laboratory to the field. The ship was never able to form a stable warp field with its 3 nacelles in 2270. Starfleet scrapped the project altogether. However, the Federation class did not turn out to be wholly futile effort. New systems developed for it were incorporated in the refitted Constitution class and into some of the later class designs, such as the Miranda. Experiments with variable nacelle configurations that began with it eventually led to the 4-cell constellation, which would be the Stargazer.
I think I do remember seeing the Miranda Dreadnought. I think it was a kit bash in a DS game.
Wouldn't be surprised.
And then there was an Excelsior Dreadnought.
Yeah, if you look at any of the DS9 stuff for the war, they literally were kit bashing, and it should not have physically been possible.
As I recall, the Centaur was a kit bash.
Yeah, I think so.
Because apparently they had an abundance of Excelsior saucers and nacelles.
Well, the problem you run into is that while I can kit bash things in plastic all the time and all the livelong day, when you're trying to create electric fields or energy fields that have a specific geometry, you cannot do it, Captain. You just don't have the power. And it really sucks when your EPS conduits don't line up by about 3 meters.
Is that really the thing? This is a TOS Dreadnought, by the way, everyone. If you didn't know it.
Give me a second while I bring up that would be the one. Federation class, designed to be an expanded version of the Constellation class for the 100th anniversary of the Federation.
And apparently they had cloaking devices. At least
That,
the movie era ones.
well,
The
I'd have to
refits.
double check. I'd have to double check because there were treaties against that.
Yeah. And these ships were considered underpowered to other dreadnoughts on other major powers, which I think is politics at its finest.
Well, not just that, but also Starfleet was not in the business of battleships and dreadnoughts.
Exactly.
Because dreadnoughts became battleships in our world. That was their entire thing. The HMS Dreadnought was the beginning of what we would consider the battleship era.
Oh, there's a species thing here.
Yes, you can actually get yourself a random generation of crewmen.
I foresee a problem.
Nocations.
Hmm.
Yeah, guess what? We can throw that out the window and make a new one.
Hooray.
This document has an incredible amount of information piled into it. It's hard to go and dig it all up properly. There's pages on the on maneuvers you can make. Pulling it back up, I think they actually have the Riker maneuver. No, they don't have the Riker maneuver, but they have actually the Picard maneuver in there, which is the inner system warp jump to go and catch off surprise or something. I don't remember the exact way to describe it. It was a maneuver that he pioneered in the Stargazer.
The ship that was attacking them at that time, they realized that their sensors weren't faster than light. So they did a thing where they did a micro warp jump, which by the time they spotted that the Stargazer was at a different position, a lot closer, they'd still be seeing the light from its previous position. Apparently some science boffin did the math and it is possible.
Gotta love it.
Indeed we do.
Let's see, where was that at? Yeah, I'm scrolling through large portions of this. But yeah, there's even systems in this document for fleet combats, where basically you turn your you group into wings, which is after all what they did in the movie, in the show. And they even do have rules for things like random fire to hit cloaked ships.
Yeah, here's the Picard maneuver apparently.
Yep, there's the one.
Apparently you can stop it with a tractor beam.
Well, yeah. I'd have to go and look at the episode again.
It was in a book.
Well, no, that actually showed up in an episode when the Stargazer is being returned by Damon Bog, I believe, as a gesture of good faith. But when Picard goes aboard, he's more or less brainwashed into trying the Picard maneuver against the Enterprise D.
Yeah, because it mentioned here the Picard maneuver. Uses a Stargazer attacked by an unknown alien ship, later determined to be of Ferengi origin. Fascinating. Oh, there's the Discovery. This has turned into a fascinating discussion. What?
Yeah. Technology, of course, advanced.
Yes, now apparently we have faster than light sensors.
Text. For example,
Ramek, either
in the original series source book that they put out for this system.
Ramek, either you're losing me or I'm losing you. Ramek? Ramek! Wow. Sorry to say it, but I think we've lost Ramik. That's bad. Oh, I think we may have to end it then. Oh, he's there apparently. Oh, we can hear him.
You can hear me again.
Yep.
That was weird. I actually typed that about 3 minutes before it showed up.
Oh.
Anyway, but yes, technology has advanced. In the original series source book for Space Dock, they include barracks as a style of crew quarters.
Hmm.
And it's exactly what you would think. Large room with many racked bunks.
Doesn't sound very comfortable.
Nope, but it was a good way to cram a lot of
Wait,
people in a small space.
wasn't that scene in the Voyager episode when we're going into Tuvok's mind about him serving on the Excelsior?
Probably. I don't recall. But if you want an idea of what it would look like, just watch Down Periscope.
I have no clue what that is.
Kelsey Grammer movie.
Fascinating.
Watch any submarine movie where they're talking about diesel electrics and you'll see that sort of combinations.
I've never really looked into submarines. I'm more of an aircraft person.
But we all live in a yellow submarine. A yellow submarine. A yellow submarine.
Raising a confused eyebrow at you.
Oh, for the love of God, you don't know the Beatles? I feel old.
The bugs on a yellow submarine?
Oh, for the love. Please tell me you're joking.
No.
The Beatles were a very big sensation in the rock and roll world. They are a British band that have been dead for some time. You might have heard of, I don't know, John Lennon?
Nope. I don't get out much.
Okay, new topic before I start screaming. Anyway, I have nothing else off the top of my head at the moment, but you can see from him scrolling through, there is a lot of stuff in this system.
Yeah, I've been scrolling for quite a while and not even halfway through yet.
Yeah, you're on page 40 of 200. Okay, stop. This is the nacelle stuff. So this actually determines your maximum speeds in warp. Now, for shits and giggles,
What warp scale is this on?
that is on the revised one. Notice the maximum you see anywhere is 9.95. Because warp 10 is supposed to be infinite speed.
Indeed. Oh, there's a 9.96.
Where is that? Oh, you are correct, and I see actually a 9.982.
Yes, there is. Fascinating.
Anyway, it should be pointed out that by Roddenberry's original design requirements, warp nacelles are required to be in pairs. However, what that was later revised to is that warp coils must be in pairs, which is why you could have brain no worky good, the Federation class. You would simply have had a pair of coils in the nacelle. It's also
What about
why
the line of sight thing?
Okay, the 50% line of sight was actually over the saucer because the Bussard ram scoop at the front of the nacelle, which was supposed to go and basically gather interstellar dust for hydrogen in order to create fuel, yeah. Those would be the things that Riker uses to suck up the Metreon gas in the movie to then spit it out and go boom.
With the Defiant?
Sorry? No.
No
The
line of
Bussard ram
sight?
scoop's being used. The Defiant has integrated warp nacelles. And I said line of sight, not to each other, which they did originally say, but they got rid of. Integrated warp nacelles are built into the body. They are also how the Galor class and the Keldon class work.
Yeah, I've blown up quite a few of them in Bridge Commander.
However, then you get into some weird stuff like, where are they on a cube?
I know the Kelvin and Galore, they're in the tail thing. At least that's in Star Trek.
I'd have to check.
Oh,
I don't recall.
that's in that game specifically. I think with the cube one, they get scattered around.
Yeah, the cube is decentralized. But the idea is that those are integrated warp nacelles as opposed to exposed ones. Apparently that's less efficient, but it's also much, much better protection.
Indeed, like we saw Captain Archer's Enterprise, one little stone hitting the nacelle and it would break.
Yep. But then again, they didn't have shields.
They had hull plating.
Yes, polarize the hull plating for no good. Polarizing it just means you've gone and oriented the molecules in a specific direction. Electrify, ionize, these might have made some difference too, but not against projectiles, ever. Against energy weapons, maybe. Polarize the hull plating. Bad.
Okay.
Well, do you know what polar is? And I don't mean in terms of Arctic.
Mostly.
Okay. This is where I have to chart out the organic chemistry.
It's a 9.96.
Huh? Oh, okay. A polar molecule is a molecule which has one side is more positive than the other. So it has a polarity, similar to a magnet, which has a north and a south pole. If you are polarizing your hull plating, assuming that's not just a misnomer where they're doing something else they just want us to believe is going to be useful, all you're doing is adding basically an electric field to it, or a magnetic field to it, which could help dissipate an energy reaction, but probably won't do a whole lot against any sort of projectile.
So it was their attempt at making skin shields that would deflect energy, but not much else.
That was their idea of ablative armor.
Oh.
As best I can tell. Because the hull plating is down, well, the hull is the plating.
Maybe that when they get hit by energy stuff, it overloads the polarizing matrix or something.
No, bad. Anyway.
Technology.
Well, actually, Trekology at this point.
What is this coaxial warp drive?
Coaxial. Coaxial means that there are two axes. An axis is a line of symmetry, in essence, in this case.
Oh, is this reverse warp drive?
No, they talked about coaxial warp propulsion in Next Generation in a single episode where they basically got stuck in the coaxial something or other, I don't recall. It's supposed to be more efficient. The idea is it folds space in a different manner by giving you different warp geometry, if I recall.
Apparently the maximum speed is warp 9.982.
Sounds about right.
Huh. Fascinating.
I think we might be running on empty at this point.
Okay. Shall we come back another day and actually start building a ship?
Might be a good idea. But as you've already seen, building a ship's going to be really complicated.
So make this a multi-part series then.
Oh, indubitably.
And then on a side note, this should, well, hopefully increase some interest in that roleplay series of yours.
Even if it doesn't, if we can increase the interest in this stuff, it's all good.
It'll be fun! What?
Oh god, you are a child. It's one of the old gag sounds they would use in cartoons. Wah, wah. Whenever somebody told a bad joke, and the character turns to the fourth wall and shrugs.
Well, everyone, if you're new, make sure to subscribe to our main podcast channel.
And please ignore the lack of quality in the early ones, and the later ones, and the ones in between. I'm going to shut up now.
You know, I still want Nizam to get the lost episode and at least put it in this side channel we've made here.
If we can ever find it.
I'm sure he has it somewhere.
Keep in mind, the Foundry is down right now. However, we do have people who are interested in English that are interested in helping us go and advance the cause of all things Caitian. So there's entirely a good bit of interest, it sounds like, in actually making Caitian maps. A new map or using the existing one for the new Caitian Star Pride productions. And basically, if you guys want to help, get in touch with Ramik. Just put it at FEYRALWOLF, Feral Wolf, in STO, and send me a message. Probably in-game mail is better. Or you can go to... Come on.
Huh?
You weren't even paying attention. Basically, send one of us a message in-game if you're interested. So you can send it to at Feyralwolf, FEYRALWOLF, or you could send it to at
Dawn Shadow Spooner.
Basically, get in touch with us. I have a fleet. It has been renamed the Caitian Star Pride Productions. It is part of the Caitian Star Pride Armada, and I will eventually be going and basically gathering anybody who wants to help, putting their alts in that fleet. In addition, I do still serve effectively as the quartermaster for the Armada, so if we do start making videos where we have backgrounds and so on, I can also keep supplying little things to help things move along. In, I think it was episode 3 of the original podcast series, for example, we all had Borg Hollow cloaks on. Guess what? I bought them for the characters and gave them to them. When we decided Kenny needed exercise, I got everybody a dog. So here's the thing. If you guys want to help, there are perks that come with it.
Yes, that's the 3 of them. Where's the dog one?
It's the very end of, I think, the last episode.
Ooh, this will be fun. There you are.
Uh-oh. Yeah, that'll be that episode.
There's Ramik for us. Well, this has been rather entertaining. And off the rails as usual.
Well, if you rewind it about a minute and a half, you'll see us running around being chased by the dogs. I think.
No, I don't think it's this one.
That one. That's the wrong podcast.
Is it 2?
Thought it was 4. But we'll see. Rewind a little bit.
No, it's 2.
Okay, it's 2 then. I sit corrected.
Yes, there you are, standing on top of a crate.
Well, yeah, you know what's in the crate, huh? Well, that's because you got the sound off. You don't hear yakety sound. Turn the sound on.
No, I don't know if I can. But anyway, I think we've had a entertaining thing.
Yes, we're being chased by those things. And we have no idea why that one was so slow.
Well, yes, have a good day, everyone.
Peace.
End transmission, hopefully.